Okay, so have you ever actually stopped to think about what happens the exact second you type a website name into your browser and hit enter? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the incredibly complex, yet totally invisible infrastructure that makes navigating the modern internet possible. There is this massive, highly coordinated translation process happening right beneath our fingertips every single day, and it works so perfectly that, honestly, we take it completely for granted. So we're going to break down exactly how human thought is instantly connected to digital reality. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the invisible address book, then move into Phase 1, local cache, followed right up by Phase 2, the Librarian. Next, we'll check out the Master Directories, and finally, wrap up with what I call the 50-millisecond miracle. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the invisible address book. Imagine trying to navigate your everyday life without the Contacts app on your smartphone. Just picture it. When you want to call someone, you can't just tap their name, right? You'd have to pull a totally random string of numbers from memory for every single person you know. It'd be a nightmare. Well, that is exactly how the internet works at its very core. Think about the difference here. On one side, we've got the human-friendly world, something easy like YouTube.com, but on the other side is the actual digital reality, a super complex IP address like 198.51.100.24. Computers use these precise numerical coordinates to locate each other. Honestly, if we had to type those exact numbers into our browsers every time we wanted to look something up, the whole digital world would just collapse under the sheer weight of all that memorization. So, obviously, we need a translator. And that's where the domain name system, or DNS, comes in. It's basically this invisible address book, bridging the huge gap between the memorable words our human brains love and the complex IP addresses that computers actually need to function. It literally saves us from having to memorize a chaotic sea of numbers just to, check the news or watch a quick video. The literal moment you hit enter on your keyboard, you trigger this lightning-fast digital relay race that spans the entire globe. And it all happens in 4 crazy fast phases: the local search, the Recursive Resolver, the Root and TLD servers, and finally, the Authoritative Name Server. Which brings us to Phase 1, local cache. This is our starting line. Look, before your computer ever bothers to ask the rest of the internet for directions, it's actually smart enough to check its own memory first. Both your web browser and your computer's operating system keep what's called a cache. Think of it as a temporary log of websites you visited recently. If you were just on a specific website, say, an hour ago, your computer already has that site's IP address saved in this log. If it finds it there, boom, the race is over instantly and the page loads without a hitch. But what happens if you've never been to the site before, or it's been a really long time? Well, then your computer has to ask for help. And that takes us to Phase 2, the Librarian. Since your computer's local memory came up completely empty, it has to send a query out into the wider internet. Now, this usually goes to a server operated by your ISP, or maybe a public service like Google's 8.8.8.8. We call this the Recursive Resolver, and its entire job, its whole purpose, is to act on your behalf to hunt down that exact IP address. To really wrap your head around what the resolver does, think of it as a highly efficient librarian. I mean, this quote perfectly captures it. It doesn't know exactly where every book is, but it knows exactly who to ask to find out. See, the resolver doesn't store the IP address for every single website on the planet. That would be impossible. Instead, its real superpower is knowing the exact directions to navigate the internet's massive hierarchy to find the one server that actually does have the answer. Moving right along to the Master Directories, where we get our final answer. At this point, the resolver leaves your local network and speeds all the way to the absolute top of the internet's hierarchy, the root servers. And we are not just talking about one random computer sitting in a basement somewhere. There are 13 massive logical root server networks strategically placed all around the world. The root server operates a lot like an old-school switchboard operator. It takes a look at your resolver's request and essentially says, well, I don't know the exact IP address for your specific site, but I do see your request ends in .com. Or, if you were looking for a .org or a .net, it would notice that instead. The root server doesn't have the final answer itself, but it points the resolver directly to the next stop, the top-level domain or TLD server that handles all .com websites. Now we're in the rapid-fire handoff. The resolver rushes over to the .com TLD server, which immediately points it to the absolute final stop, the Authoritative Name Server. This is the ultimate, official record holder where the website owner registered their domain in the first place. It finds the exact IP address and hands that precise number right back to our resolver. And that brings us to the victorious final stretch of our relay race.
The resolver, now armed with the exact IP address, sprints all the way back to your computer and hands those numerical coordinates directly to your web browser. Now that your browser finally has the precise numbers it needs, it makes a direct connection to the website's hosting server, and the web page content instantly begins to download right onto your screen. Which leads us to our grand finale, the 50 millisecond miracle. Less than 50 milliseconds. Seriously, from the exact moment you hit enter, through the entire global hunt across the root, the TLD, and the authoritative servers, all the way back to your browser, the whole entire process is usually over in under 50 milliseconds. It is absolutely staggering when you think about it. This totally invisible global relay race happens flawlessly billions of times a second every single day. It is the ultimate translator between human thought and digital reality. When a worldwide communication process happens in fewer milliseconds than it literally takes to blink an eye, you really have to ask yourself, is the speed of digital translation outpacing human thought itself? It's pretty wild to think about. Keep staying curious about the invisible systems that power our everyday world, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.